So good evening. It's so great to be back in person again. We made this decision to go to in-person only because, no question, COVID was an issue for a long time and still remains an issue. But there is something really very special about having community, seeing people rather than on Zoom. So we really thank you very much for coming out this evening and making this a success just by your presence. So the WTM was created about 7 or 8 years ago. We would meet the first and third Thursdays of the month here at the Shaganappi Hall. And it was an intent to offer mindfulness and meditation related topics freely to the community. So we have two websites, in case you might want to have a look at them at some point in time. One's called www.thebreathproject.org. And this was a website that actually I created for my patients a long time ago as a way of trying to offer some way of dealing with their stress. It has animated videos on meditation and multiple interviews with experts in mindfulness. And then we have wtm.thebreathproject.org, both connected. And on that, we have information about the upcoming speakers. We have recordings of all our talks. We have mindful musings, which are thoughts about mindfulness, and we have resources. And so if you haven't checked out the website, I think that would be a great thing to do. And it's also a great way to sign up so that you'll know what's coming up and get a reminder of what the upcoming talk is going to be. So the evening consists of a talk by our speaker, Dr. Allan Donsky, from roughly 7:10 till 8. And then we have 30 minutes for questions and answers. And please don't be afraid to ask a question from Allan, because this is a great opportunity. No question is unreasonable or stupid. And the question that you're going to ask, probably the person next to you isn't brave enough to ask. So do it. If you do ask questions, please make them relevant to either the topic of the evening or anything related to mindfulness and meditation. Just as a disclaimer, though Allan is a psychiatrist, he's not here in a professional capacity, and we're not here in a professional capacity either. So keep it general and generic if you might. The WTM is a community, and we freely offer these talks. There's no payment made to any of the speakers, any of the organizers. However, the reality is we do have costs related to rental of the hall, our expensive tea and chocolates, and our tech support, because we need posters created, our website. And so if you feel that this is of value for you, we would appreciate any donations you would like to make. There's a basket at the back, or you can make it online. I think it's important for us to do a territorial acknowledgement, and I acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. That includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda, and the city of Calgary, which is also the home of the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We care about your health. COVID is still a reality. If you feel that you have any possibility of a cold, then we would think it would be wise that you don't come. And if you want to wear a mask, that's perfectly acceptable. So just, we expect you to make your own risk assessment of coming to any in-person meeting. We've started a new aspect on our website. It's called sharing. And if you want to ask any question related to a presentation, any question related to mindfulness or meditation, please enter that onto the sharing website. And it will be addressed by our core committee, who in our best endeavors will answer your question as best as we can. A reminder, if you have a cell phone, probably now is a good time to turn it off or turn it to vibrate. So what's coming up? On October 19th, Mary Wallace is going to be talking about when is a story not a story. Mary's talked here before. She's a wonderful individual with great knowledge about many topics. And people have always relied on stories to define themselves and explain their world. But stories can also be a hindrance to insight. What happens if we consider the end of our reliance on narratives as the true beginning of the spiritual life? And this really has so much wisdom to it. We live our lives limited by our personal narratives. And if we can move beyond those stories, what will be the magic of our unconditioned presence? Great topic. Dr. Leslie Ellistad on November 2nd, talking about 5 steps to freedom. And again, Leslie has been a core member of our committee and a moderator and a speaker. In the process of developing a mindfulness meditation practice, we will experience a variety of obstacles to our eventual freedom. We'll explore the process of patience, letting be, interest, love, and spaciousness. So a wonderful understanding how we can bring mindfulness to the relationship of each moment, and importantly, our sense of self, which is the root cause of our suffering. So tonight I'm delighted to have Allan Donsky, a great presenter, great wealth of knowledge, and a good friend. And I think of Allan as the Renaissance man. So we're going to learn something not just about the sort of understanding, the intellectual understanding, but we're going to learn about the poetry of mindfulness as well. And so I always love hearing Allan's talk, because it's this integration of these two components. And who knows what Allan's going to quote? What poetry, what cartoon, or whatever. So just to tell you that Allan was a psychiatrist, a child and adolescent, for 28 years. And now he's living the good life. He's retired. Not totally, though. Not totally. He's a clinical associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry. He sits at the core committee of the Alberta Health Services Addiction and Mental Health Strategic Clinical Network. He offers workshops, and he's a board chairman and consultant psychiatrist at a group called CINIM. What's CINIM stand for, Allan?
CINIM, Canadian Institute of Natural and Integrative Medicine, CINIM.
So it's for not-for-profit online mental health programming. So Allan certainly is a very experienced individual, and we're lucky to have him as part of our community and to offer his knowledge to you. And so what is he going to talk about tonight? This evening's meditation will be a deep practice of experiencing the life inside of us moment to moment. The talk that follows will explore this reality, and that our lives consist of flow and a vast capacity for harmony. And so with that, I will turn the evening over to Allan, and I'm sure it will be really fascinating. Thanks, Allan.
Thank you, Phil. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually not going to say much at this point at all, because we always start these meetings with the practice. And the practice is what's actually important. because the practice is the life. It's the life we all have. And the practicing, the active verb, practicing. The talk afterwards is commentary, expansion, elaboration on what you've experienced. So if there's something in your hands, I invite you to put them down. I invite you to notice that your body may be doing things that it needs to do to get ready for what's coming. And we'll just start with experiencing the sound of the bells. And just following the bells until the sound flows into silence. Every moment is an opportunity to set and reset our intention and giving ourselves permission. Those two go together. We are setting an intention to give ourselves permission, and we permit ourselves to set an intention. And this evening's sit, we intend to go inwards. We have an inner life, which is half of our lives, and we have what we perceive to be an outer life, the world of action out there. And going inwards challenges our default mode, which is to always be thinking, planning, remembering, going back somewhere into the past or jumping into the future somewhere. And so we anchor ourselves in the fullness of this present moment by using first the body as it is, and just becoming aware. If you notice how often the ing will be used in the sit, because we are experiencing the moments. We are attending to what is coming up for us in the field of awareness. And so we give ourselves permission to experience the body as it is. And as Phil already alluded to in the upcoming talks, the word acceptance came up. And it just means not resisting, not thinking about, not setting any particular destination, not fixing anything, just allowing ourselves the gift of being present for whatever shows up in the body, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. doesn't mean shutting out or attempting to ignore or force away other things of which you are aware, sounds or thoughts. It's just that redirecting to the body. Giving yourself permission again to settle in to the body, listening for any stories of tension, tuning into any tightness, and just being with it without trying to fix anything. Noticing. The mind will want to, and it will, keep dictating stories, thoughts, ideas, analysis, judgments. And when you notice the mind is doing what it does, you can quietly acknowledge its capacities for thinking and say, thank you right now. I'm giving myself permission to be with myself and what's going on inside in a different way than just thinking. In fact, I'm giving you a little break. Thank you, mind. Thank you, emotions, for emoting. You can do your job. I'm not ignoring you. It's just for now, you are not the center of my attention. And within the body, you may have noticed, or not, that within the body is that natural, fully autonomous, functional, reliable friend called the breath. And again, without trying to change it in any way, giving yourself permission to let the breath breathe you. The breath knows exactly what to do in this moment. If you had to remember to breathe, you wouldn't have woken up this morning because you would have fallen asleep on the job. And when we give ourselves permission to drop in, tuning in first to the body and the breath, we notice there's a certain kind of shift in energy. There's a certain something there that's perhaps beyond words. There's something going on there. And when we start to pay attention to this something, we recognize it's on the other side of or underneath just thinking and emoting. Thoughts and the feelings are there, but right now they're not the center of attention. They haven't gone away, but somehow they're not gripping us so firmly. And then this is where we sort of cross a little bit of a experiential threshold. We drop into the heart. You can use the physical heart in the middle of your chest. Or you can think of heart in another way. And I don't define any words, because the words are merely pointing at your experience in this moment. And just think about, or notice rather, see how easy it is to slip into thinking. Noticing what comes up for you when you hear the word heart. The heart of the matter. Or the word spirit. Or the word energy. Or the word soul. Perhaps just noticing which of those 4 words settle in you, are settling in you. Which of those 4 words have caught your attention? Heart, spirit, soul, energy. Perhaps they're 2, perhaps all of them, perhaps none of them. And as we drop into the space with permission and intention, we start to sense that there's something else going on here in addition to thoughts or feelings, our usual modes of operating. And just giving yourself again the intention and permission just to be with it. It's not about analysis or trying to describe it or define it or measure it. Just staying with whatever is present. And perhaps even for a moment or longer, there's a sense of openness, curiosity, and not knowing. You can't quite find the words for this. And that's fine. Because whatever this interior experience is what you are paying attention to right now on purpose, with permission. And given that we are called human beings, there's the active verb again, ing, being. You're noticing that nothing in there is staying the same. thoughts come and go, an awareness of a sound, feeling, sensation, memory, an idea. There's this constant movement. Everything is shifting. Just being aware of everything that's in your field of knowing. And because of the experience of everything shifting and moving, we call that flux. We call that change. And there can only be movement in the presence of energy. And where there's energy, there's movement. And where there's movement, there's change. And where there's change, there's possibility. And where there's energy and change and possibility, there can be a movement, a direction. And energy can move in any which way. Emotions are made of energy. Every emotion has a physicality to it, certain energy, intense or harsh or loud, pointed, curt, dense. Or other emotions and feelings are softer and diffuse and gentle. It's all just energy. And if we tune into this energy in the body through the breath, through the soma, through our experience, we can listen to what that energy is telling us. We can use the messages to reset an intention. We can give ourselves permission to shift that energy. If we're off course emotionally or with our thinking, we can set an intention, because we may be going down rabbit holes we've gone down before, and they don't serve us. They don't serve our relationships, whatever those thoughts and strong emotions are. So by tuning in to the unpleasant, I call it the yucky stuff. It's a message. It's not who we are. It's just a certain kind of inner music that we've listened to 1,000 times and haven't found a way of changing the channel. So we can tune into the energies which are there. And if there isn't much happening, because things are feeling a little more settled or grounded or centered or calm, then we sit there and we wait and watch and wonder. Because in this very, very quiet place, there may be little things which are wanting to be heard. The language of the heart is very soft. It doesn't yell like our emotions and our thoughts and our conclusions and our judgments. The language of the heart is soft. The wounding of the heart is harsh. The language of the heart is soft. The language of the mind is thought. The language of the soul is imagination. And imagination is the doorway to creativity. What is asking to be created? What deepest inside of us is calling our attention? For each of us, it's different. So mindful attention on purpose, moment to moment, allows us to listen to the inner voice, to develop an inner literacy. And Howard Thurman, the minister, said, in the silence, if we listen, we can hear the whispers of the heart. In the silence, when we listen, we can hear the whispers of the heart. We are listening to the whispering of the inner life. And when we go inwards, it's not about making everything disappear and nothingness. It's actually listening and reaching into the silence for what is not yet heard. The poet T.S. Eliot said, words after speech reach into the silence. Because words can't get into the experience, but the experiencing is always here. And so beyond our wanting and doing, beyond your wanting and doing, there is experiencing. There's this inner life waiting to be heard, sensed, felt, seen, appreciated, explored, loved, touched, honored, cherished, enjoyed, beautified, created. And we all have this inner garden. It's called humanity. And it's waiting for each of us inside of each of us, because everybody's got it. Mindfulness is the doorway. Mindfulness is the path to finding this fullness of possibility and creativity. So just noticing right now, whatever's coming up for you is what is needing and asking for your attention. Whatever it is, that calling, or maybe it's a yearning, maybe it's a forgotten desire. And mindfulness, when taken down to this level, creates this space in which we can see the vastness of possibilities. And just to be noticing one or two words that are coming up. And what comes up, you'll notice that the words will arise for what's coming up. You don't think your way to this stuff. It doesn't work that way. Whatever is being called for, your thinking mind is in the service of what you're experiencing. And whatever is coming up for you as you label it in one or two words for yourself, in the next few hours or days or even weeks. Just come back to this and explore it. Listen to it. It's yours. It's available 24/7. Technology free, no batteries required. And once you've got in touch with whatever this is inside of you, and even if you're left with an unknowing question, that's fine. That's what you'll take away. An experience of this unknowing question, that there's something still there to be looked at and explored. And that's fine too. That's exactly the point you're going to start at. Is exactly where you are. So taking your time in the next few moments to just reorient yourself, your breath, the body. And when you're ready, your eyes will open and reorient yourself right back to some attention being on the world out there, as we call it, this outer space. So staying with this experience as it is right now, and because this will be recorded later on, when we have Q&A and feedback, we'll turn the recording off, Phil, later on. And so people can feel more free to comment without worrying about it being recorded. So the experience is what's actually what it's all about. And moving into the talk, we can now engage our brain. The thinking mind has been waiting patiently for thoughts and all that sort of stuff. Joseph Campbell, he's the mythologist in mythology. He wrote a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And he says we all have to become a hero in our own lives, because otherwise we don't live the life that is waiting for us. And he said that most people don't, they ask, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? Why am I here? You can come up with some sort of idea, or philosophy, or theory, or belief. But in the end, he says, that goes nowhere, because our species has been contemplating that for tens of thousands of years. From when we first noticed the seasons, we said, let's plant some crops and save them for the winter, or looked up at the stars. He says people don't want a meaning of life. They want an experience of life. We want to know how to experience life as it is. And of course, if it's out of balance and off kilter, We want to restore the balance. So it's no accident that the most popular movie series out there, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or Star Wars, or even Alice in Wonderland, or the Avengers, or Wonder Woman, or Black Panther, it's about following a certain kind of calling, which comes from the inside. It's about saying yes. But how do we get there? What's in the way? And Leslie's talk about looking at the 5 blockages and the 5 ways of freedom. The spiritual path, all spiritual paths, whatever tradition or whatever you come from, involves becoming aware of the obstacles. And the obstacles are the way that we view ourselves, because we view ourselves as separate I. I have a body. I have an identity. This is my body, my property, my house, my car, my life, my kids, my job, my career, my profession, my. And we concretize our life around this physical form. Now, that physical form has a utility and a function. It's very functional. Your passport has your photo in it. You have to sign at the bank. You need a pin on your bank card. Yes. But that's just the physicality of it. And we believe that's all there is. In Buddhism, they talk about the 5 aggregates. And just briefly, and all of these are impermanent. There's form, which is the body, and all of our bodies are changing. I'm definitely not the same as I was when I was in utero. And I'm definitely going to be different in 5 or 10 years' time. Hope I'll still be alive. So the body's changing. Sensations are changing all the time. Our senses are our gateway to the world around us. So we've got the 5 physical senses. And then we can have a 6th sense. Some people talk about a social sense and intelligence, or even other senses, ESPs or energies or whatever. All these other kinds of awarenesses of things beyond ourselves. We've then got perceptions, which is what happens next. So I have a sensation and then it has a tone, a flavor to it. We call that a perception. So things are getting colder. Right now it's October. Then we have the mind, and roughly speaking, thoughts and emotions. Everybody knows what those are all about. We live in that one, boy, a lot of the time. And then above that, there's consciousness, awareness. There's this vast field in which all of these other things sort of exist. And none of those are permanent. Not one of them. We get sleepy, we fall asleep, our consciousness changes. When we're in a dream state, EEG patterns change. Our sensations and feelings are all changing all the time. So nothing is permanent. But that's the doorway into recognizing, rather than, oh my goodness, I'm nothing. No. You're everything. Because hidden in that possibility for change is the opportunity to direct the change. When we get caught in emotions, when I get caught in my potholes that I fall into, impatience, or spending too much time thinking about the future, I can go, oh, that's interesting. And we can watch the change. We can watch a thought come and go. I don't need to hang on to it. So with this recognition that nothing is the same, rather than panicking, you can go, oh, wow. Thank goodness I can change. Otherwise, I'd be a statue. There'd be no movement. There'd be no energy. Not only is all this stuff changing, but the reality is that we also are not separate from the world out there. And I'll use two very obvious examples. The first is vision. You all looking at me or somewhere in the room, I'm looking at you. There's a physical me here, and there is a physical person over there who shall go nameless, because even though I know your name. So I'm seeing you. Light is bouncing off you. If there was no light in here, I couldn't see you. Light is bouncing off you. Your skin, your clothes are absorbing certain wavelengths. Light's coming in through my eyes, the back of my eyes, my retina, going through my brain, getting processed, and it's landing in the back of my brain, which is where the visual cortex is. That's where the processing is. It's getting processed there, but also associations are happening. So I can tell something about perhaps your gender, perhaps your age, your body languages, all those associations. Let's just think about that for a moment, because I'm seeing you over there. The visual processing is happening here, 8-10 feet away. So just try and answer this question. Where is the boundary between you and me? Because the visual processing is happening here in the back of my head, but I know physically that you're over there. I don't have an answer to that, except that perhaps the boundaries we set up about the world are not as clear cut. You're listening to my talking. Somewhere inside this thing called Allan, in the mind of Allan, or the heart of Allan, or the soul of Allan, something is bubbling up, and we call it ideas or thoughts. They bubble up, they come somewhere into my brain, they come into my speech center, which is somewhere identified in the left part of my left brain. They're getting processed. I'm kind of listening to myself at the same time. They then getting moved down through nerves into my vocal cords and flowing. Somehow my vocal cords know how to make these shapes automatically. We all speak the same language. It's called English. And then my mouth and all this air is going out in certain sound frequencies in the air and vibrations. It's landing in your ears, your eardrums moving little hairs in your inner ear, which are going to somewhere in your brain called your hearing center, and that's being translated into something you can understand. Same question. Where do I start and you end? The boundaries start becoming real fuzzy because it's a total experiencing. And you can do that for sensations, you can do that for thoughts, you can do that for ideas, you can do that for feeling, energy. Phil mentioned earlier on the beautiful energy in the room. We can just feel it. It's delightful. So we start to see that this idea that I'm fixed, we're much, much bigger and we're much more connected than we think we are, which really starts to build a sense of openness and opening and experiencing. And when we tap in and we see that there's much more going on than just thoughts and feelings, much more. 120 years ago, plus 100 years ago, all the quantum nuclear physicist folk, all of them, including Marie Curie, can't leave out the women, she's one of only 2 people in history who won the Nobel Prize in 2 different disciplines. Marie Curie won it in physics and chemistry, the other was Linus Pauling. I mention that because all the other names I'm going to talk about that people have heard about, Rutherford and Bohr and Einstein and Heisenberg and Schrödinger and Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project and all that stuff, they all wrote about it. It's there, that we're just matter and energy. End of discussion. The atom is not a thing, it's an idea. We can't even figure out whether light is a particle or a wave, because in certain circumstances it shows characteristics of both. Everything is in flux, everything is energy, everything is change. The mind, the stories, the ego, the I, me, mine is limiting. Because we get stuck in the stories, we get stuck in the trauma we've had, we get stuck in this has happened to me, we get stuck in identity, we get stuck in political ideas, we get stuck in our, you name it. Because there's a part of us that wants to believe that I am me, the I, me, mine. And Phil talks about this very eloquently. Whenever he gives a talk, he talks about how we get stuck with this fixed identity. But when we look at it, there's way more going on inside. That's a vastness and an openness. That's why we meditate. That's why some people pray. That's why some people reflect. And there are a million ways of engaging in contemplative practices that take you inwards in the service of figuring out who the richer you is, and then coming out in the world and being in the world in a different way. That's what this is all about. How do we make things better? How do we enrich the human experience? How do we come to more? And I have an acronym that came up about 10 months into COVID, when I was going through everything that everybody else has gone through. The fear, the despondency, the loneliness, the isolation, the not knowing, the uncertainty, the grief, the loss. I came up with, how am I going to guide myself through this? And I just noticed that I tend to speed up, I tend to get impatient, and I tend to get grumpy and irritable. So my first three-letter acronym was SPK. Slow down, Allan. Slow it down, because when we let the mind and the emotions, it'll speed it all up quickly like that, in a flash. We're angry, we're irritable, I'm right, you're wrong. Slow it down. The moment I slow it down, I'm more patient. And the moment I'm more patient, I'm kinder with myself and I'm kinder with others. That's my process, my SPK. Allan, SPK. I practice it every day. And I get good at noticing when I'm starting to speed up. Allan, chill, buddy. Just chill. Then, what content am I looking for? And each person will have their own agenda. That's why I invited each of you to notice what's coming up for you, because each person's going to be different. I came up with 3 other letters, PBJ. Now, it so happens that I like peanut butter and jam, but it's not the PBJ. Mine, I look for as a guide. I don't always find it and it slips away. Peace, beauty, and joy. How do I know when I need to look for peace? Whenever I'm at war with myself or with other people or the world or the politicians or that person or that driver or that colleague or that neighbor. I'm at war all the time, or I'm at war with myself, arguing and no, this is right, Allan. No. But on the other hand, Allan, that. Allan, whoa. SPK, peace is the first one. When do I look for beauty? Whenever I get ugly, judgmental, harsh, critical, either of myself or others, because everyone's just trying to do their best to get through this thing called life. Look for the beauty, it's there. Look for the beauty because it's there. Viktor Frankl, who survived a number of Nazi death camps, said the most beautiful sunset he ever saw in his entire life was in the Auschwitz concentration camp. Wow. I don't think he said that for effect. Peace, beauty, joy. When do I need to look for joy? Whenever I'm getting into the D words, despondent, depressed, defeated, I'm defective, I'm down. And I don't need to look hard to find these states because they come up every single day. That's my curriculum. And the beautiful thing, I'll stop very shortly. The beautiful thing is any of these is a doorway in. Because the moment I look for peace, I'm also going to be slowing things down. There's the intention and permission. Coming right back to where we started at the beginning of this set. My intention and permission is to be slower, more patient and kind. My intention is to bring more peace, beauty, and joy to myself and my relationships. This isn't a theory. This is just how I've used mindfulness in my life to come up with something that helps my inner curriculum. And it comes back to that mindfulness of the moment. Where am I? Going inwards, below, underneath, on the other side of the mind and the heart. I mean the mind, the emotions, the thinking, the stories, the I, me, mine, the attachment, the ego. And listening. What's called for? As a therapist, my two favorite questions were, and sometimes I would ask them aloud or while I was initially meeting somebody, where's this person stuck? And what's called for? Really simple stuff. We can ask ourselves that. Where am I stuck? And what's called for? When I'm hungry, what's called for is somehow finding some food. When I'm angry, what's called for is calming down. When I'm tired, what's called for is sleep. When I'm grieving, what's called for is allowing a grief process that will allow some patience and compassion, and remembering that in the grief are the memories of beautiful relationships I had. And I want to have those kind of relationships again. I can't have it with that person because maybe they're not here anymore physically. So hidden inside all those yucky things is the key. Hidden inside anger is the invitation for peace. Hidden inside depression is the crying of the soul for joy and expansiveness and flourishing and the fullness of life. If you're feeling isolated, those feelings of isolation are calling for connection. Don't need to be a psychiatrist for this. Now, there may be reasons why you're disconnected. And many people have had all kinds of reasons why they're disconnected. Culturally, religiously, physically, financially. They've got trauma they haven't worked through, so they're always in fear mode. They built up defenses. But even if that's the case, that sense of loneliness is saying, "Jeebus, I need to connect." And then you go in and you say, what kind of connections do I want? But just by listening in, we'll hear what we want. That's it. I covered it. Throw down the bullet points. I looked at it at 5:30 this evening. I said, okay, have I left anything out? No, I haven't. Let's turn this off full so we can So yeah, the vastness of going inwards and the joy of going inwards, beyond wanting and doing. That was the title of this evening's sit and presentation. That there's a vastness inside, and there will be a summary of the talk also on the website. Thank you.